Welcome back to another explainer. So today we're tackling something that is incredibly common, but honestly, so misunderstood. We're talking about chronic, unexplained indigestion. If you've been struggling with stomach pain, bloating, or getting full after just a few bites, and you are just entirely sick of relying on medications, well, you're in the right place. Today, our goal is to build you a personalized, drug-free toolbox to soothe your gut. We're going to take the latest medical guidelines and dietary research and break them down into simple, layman's terms and actionable steps you can literally start using at your very next meal.
Look, before we get into the weeds, we gotta talk about the elephant in the room. It is just incredibly frustrating to have real, everyday, life-altering stomach pain only to go to the doctor, get an endoscopy or a scan, and be told repeatedly, hey, everything looks perfectly normal. You know, it can absolutely make you feel like it's all in your head, but I want to validate your experience right now. It is not in your head. Your pain is real. It's just that the structural tests we have, like looking for ulcers or inflammation, well, they just aren't designed to see the specific type of problem you're actually dealing with. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, what is functional dyspepsia? Second, foundational eating habits. Third, identifying food triggers. Fourth, exploring specialized diets. Fifth, probiotics and alternative therapies. And finally, building a flexible action plan. Section 1. What is functional dyspepsia? First things first, if you're dealing with this, you are in a massive club. Recent global data shows this actually affects between 7 and 12% of the global population. To put that into perspective, that is literally hundreds of millions of people dealing with the exact same frustrating symptoms you are. You are absolutely not alone here. And honestly, because it's so common, the medical community has actually been studying it pretty intensely. So the official medical term here is functional dyspepsia, or FD for short. Remember how we said your structural test came back normal? That's because FD isn't a structural issue like a torn muscle or a bleeding ulcer. It's actually a gut-brain communication issue. Think of the nerves supplying your stomach like a really high-tech security alarm system. Now, in a healthy gut, that alarm only goes off if there's an actual intruder, like, say, a nasty stomach bug. But with functional dyspepsia, that alarm system becomes overly sensitive. It just starts blaring and causing pain just because a totally normal, harmless meal walked through the front door. Your stomach might also be a little delayed in emptying that food out, but that hypersensitivity is the core issue. To break this down a bit further, doctors generally categorize FD into two main types. See which one rings a bell for you. The first is PDS, or postprandial distress syndrome. Think of this as the full and bloated type. The alarm goes off right after you eat. You might get severe bloating, feel uncomfortably full, or just feel completely stuffed after a couple of bites. The second type is EPS, epigastric pain syndrome. Think of this as the burning and painful type. This is characterized by a burning sensation or real pain in the upper abdomen. And get this, it can happen right after a meal or even when you're fasting and your stomach is totally empty. Some folks even have a mix of both. Pinpointing your type really helps us figure out which non-pharmacological tools are going to work best for you. Moving right along to Section 2, Foundational Eating Habits. Now, what's really interesting about this is that before we even think about cutting out specific foods or jumping on restrictive diets, we've got to look at how we actually eat. Building a really solid dietary foundation is our absolute first line of defense. Because look, if you eat a perfectly healthy meal, but you eat it the wrong way, you can still trip that oversensitive stomach alarm. Think of this as traffic control for your digestive system. First up, you've got to eat 3 smaller, regular meals. Long gaps followed by a huge meal, that totally overwhelms a sensitive stomach. Second, and this is crucial, you must chew thoroughly and eat slowly. Your teeth are literally the only part of your digestive tract that can physically crush food. Your stomach doesn't have teeth. If you're swallowing huge chunks, your poor stomach is working overtime. Third, sit upright for an hour or 2 after eating so gravity can actually help empty your stomach. Fourth, keep fluids during meals to a minimum, like half a glass or about 100 milliliters. Chugging water while eating just expands your stomach and triggers that fullness and pain. And finally, ditch the straws and fizzy drinks. You want to keep unnecessary air and gas completely out of your system. All right, Section 3, Identifying Food Triggers. I know, glancing at these common triggers might feel a little depressing at first. But let's break down why they cause issues and check out some incredibly friendly alternatives. So, solid high-fat foods are a major trigger because fat physically delays stomach emptying. If your stomach is already sluggish, a greasy burger just sits there like a brick. But softer fats, like what you'd blend into a smoothie, are way easier to process. Next, raw, high-fiber veggies. They are just incredibly tough for a sensitive stomach to break down mechanically. The simple fix? Just cook, roast, or mash them until they're nice and soft. Caffeine and alcohol are direct chemical irritants to the gut lining, so cutting back or swapping to caffeine-free substitutes is a really smart move. And finally, spicy foods with capsaicin. That's the stuff that makes chili peppers hot, can trigger severe burning for EPS patients. Just stick to mildly seasoned meals while you're working on calming your system down. Okay, on to section 4, exploring specialized diets. And this brilliantly illustrates how we can use specific specialized diets as kind of temporary investigative tools. If you're someone who gets hit hard with a severe bloating type of dyspepsia, research shows you might really benefit from a low FODMAP diet. Basically, FODMAPs are these short-chain carbs found in stuff like wheat, certain fruits, and dairy, which ferment in your gut and produce a ton of gas. Dialing those back can drastically cut down on bloating. On the flip side, a gluten-free diet can be a game-changer if you have an underlying non-celiac gluten sensitivity, which actually overlaps quite a bit with functional dyspepsia. But, and this is a massive warning from gastroenterologists, these should only be temporary experiments to pinpoint what you're sensitive to. Do not stay on a highly restrictive diet long-term without supervision, because it can absolutely lead to malnutrition and a whole lot of food anxiety. Next up, section 5, probiotics and alternative therapies. The science behind this is just fascinating. We're finding that an imbalance in your gut bacteria plays a massive role in FBD. So taking probiotics acts like sending little peacekeepers into your gut microbiome. They reduce inflammation and actually help modulate that hyperactive gut-brain alarm system we talked about. Beyond probiotics, clinical trials show that simple caraway oil can specifically help reduce that awful burning pain. Ginger and artichoke extracts are amazing because they naturally speed up stomach emptying, which gives you relief from that excessive fullness. And there's even a really well-studied 9-herb preparation called STW5 that has proven highly effective in tackling post-meal fullness and early satiety. These natural supplements are just fantastic, drug-free ways to tell your gut's nervous system to chill out.
Finally, section 6, a flexible action plan.
So how do we pull this all together and actually live with these tools without it totally overwhelming your life? Well, the most important thing to realize is that your digestion is not static. You're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days, and your diet needs to adapt to that. Food texture is literally your secret weapon here. On a pretty good day, just aim for about 1/3 of your meals to be soft or liquid, maybe a smoothie for breakfast, but normal meals for lunch and dinner. But on a bad day, when your stomach is just screaming at you, give it a mechanical break. Shift things around so that 2/3 of your meals are soft or liquid. Think pureed soups, mashed potatoes, slow-cooked stews, or yogurt. You're still getting all your calories and nutrition, but you are doing the mechanical breakdown in the blender or the crock pot, instead of forcing your exhausted stomach to do all the heavy lifting. So the crucial point here is absolute flexibility. You really want to learn to tune into your body's signals. When you're in the green zone and feeling pretty normal, you don't need to live in constant fear of food. Eat 3 regular meals, don't overly restrict yourself, just remember the one golden rule: do not overeat. But the second you feel yourself slipping into that yellow zone with mild symptoms starting to flare up, that's when you immediately deploy your toolbox. Modify those high-fiber and high-fat textures, get really strict about avoiding your personal triggers like caffeine or spice, and shift down to smaller, softer meals. It is all about gracefully shifting gears rather than living your whole life on a miserable, permanent diet. Look, living with functional dyspepsia, it's tough, no doubt about it. But you are definitely not powerless here. You don't have to just suffer in silence waiting for some magic pill. You now have a really comprehensive, drug-free toolbox of dietary and lifestyle strategies to take control of your digestion back. Whether it's just sitting up right after a meal, blending up your veggies, or trying out a daily probiotic, the power is right in your hands. So, I'm going to leave you with this challenge. Think back on the tools we covered today. What is just one foundational habit you are going to change at your very next meal to start soothing your gut? Try it out, listen to what your body tells you, and start that healing journey today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.